Hello and welcome to episode 66 of I'm Fine, a chat between myself, Damo, and the other P in my pod, Mark. It's a chat around the subjects of health, wealth, well-being, fitness, sport, food, and funny business, shenanigans. We're all work in progress and this podcast is no exception. In short, it's a poke at our perfectly imperfect lives, and if we can make just one person feel like they're not alone in all this, madness, they call it madness, then our work here is done. Just for you, Mark, that one.
Bless. I thought you could have said the other petit pois, and I could have taken that as an insult.
Why?
Well, like little P.
What, like a hike thing? I would never comment on your height.
No. I've told you about the co-op peas, haven't I?
Oh, God, you always... Yeah, well, yeah, to be fair, you haven't banged on about them for a while.
It's still there.
Have you noticed I don't know if I've ever left them in. I normally edit those out.
You have edited
because they're normally about 20 minutes of you telling me how expensive... Well, how much you're being ripped off by the co-op.
So do you
want to do it again?
Well, as you've asked...
Yeah.
So in the co-op, there's 2 bags of peas, both co-op garden peas, frozen. And I'm not going to go into the minutiae of it.
No, go on, Mark, while we're here.
But the bigger bag is always cheaper than the little bag. Always.
Dun, dun, dun.
And it's picking on old people.
Oh, yeah.
Because they go, I only need a few... No. What am I doing?
What? You don't need to do an impression of an old person.
I'll just speak normally. That's what I was going to say. Oh, bless. You know, old people like in their 60s.
Yeah.
They're so stupid. No.
Yeah.
So what it is that they're playing on old people going, I don't need loads of peas.
I just need a small bag because I was only me.
And it's like ridiculous. It's like the difference in price is daft.
Why don't you write a letter?
Okay, I will.
If you feel so strongly about that.
There's also the logic. You could say if you're not ripping off old people, why would you have a big bag of peas costing less than a little? What's your rationale? It isn't like it's a lost leader.
There you go. That's the meat of your letter, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, I'll do that. Accountability. I want some help with accountability.
Oh yeah, I can be your accountability buddy.
Well, and
you've done that yet, Mark? Have you done that yet? Because that's what my text will sound like. You've done that yet? Come on, you said you'd do it. You haven't done it yet.
Writing a Danny Dyer email.
Oh, Mark.
No, Danny Dyer.
Get it, Dan, you slag.
Yeah,
is that better?
Yeah. Where's your peas? What's your P's and Q's?
Slag.
Yeah.
Right. Make sure you subscribe to us in your podcast app and follow us on the socials by searching for I'm Finecast, and please drop us an email at imfinecast@gmail.com, which some people have done. So coming up in this episode, warm up and stretch. We've got some catch ups and bookmarks because we're doing, one a week, aren't we? So we've got plenty to catch up with.
Mm-hmm.
However, we do have a special guest interview in this episode. Mm-hmm. We are continuing our journey into gut health by speaking to Miguel Toribio-Mateas, who's Director of Research and Innovation at Atlas Biomed, the very clever sausages behind the DNA and microbiome tests that I've done, that I still haven't talked... What?
You didn't have to use sausages, bearing in mind...
What? What's the clever sausages?
Yeah, okay, sorry.
What? Is this...
No.
What?
Well, he was saying about people not liking to talk about poo in the interview, and
Have you just linked sausages and poo? That's so childish, honestly.
Carry on.
So we kick things off chatting about the gut-brain axis, which you have talked about on this pod many, many episodes ago with the vagus nerve. So we thought we'd ask someone who knew what they were talking about. Yeah, I have a chat with Miguel, which I did yesterday, and you've heard the interview, Mark, haven't you?
I have. Enjoyed it thoroughly. I thought it was a really good balance from him in terms of it was educative, he had a really good sense of humour, and it made sense. I just thought it was a really good level. The only thing I thought, I was a little bit surprised that there wasn't a big push from either of you.
For?
Well, every podcast I'm listening to Shag Married Annoyed at the moment, which I'm really enjoying. Although they're a little
15 minutes of ads at the beginning.
Yeah, I don't need to know their whole HelloFresh menu, but I just thought...
That's not what we're about.
No. I know we're not. For someone to give his time up like that...
Yeah, it's great, yeah.
He wasn't like, oh, by the way, it wasn't like name dropping and stuff like that. He was just...
No, they're great. I've been kind of encouraging them to push their wares, really, because we kind of believe in we believe.
Yeah.
In the product, and we believe it's going to be a benefit to our listeners, and that's kind of how we roll here, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
that's coming up.
Yeah, we take a look at that and what significant part it plays in our overall physical and mental health. And also, Atlas Biomed have kindly given us 30% off for you, our listeners, off the DNA and microbiome tests. So stick around for the code, and I'll give you that later on. And because it's a bit of a shorter episode either side of that, we go straight into mailbag.
Okay.
Got a couple of mails and some life hacks.
Go. This is going to be, I can see it.
What, you're pumped now? You have woken up.
No, but there's not going to be
standing up and cowering over me. It's very threatening, Mark. You want to sit down?
Okay.
I didn't do it.
What?
Oh, you are.
Yeah.
So what he said that we're doing one podcast a week. Just another reminder. I won't keep banging on about it, but we will be publishing every Friday at 5 a.m. UK time. Be there or be square or be in bed like the rest of us. We may from time to time have the occasional bonus episode on a Tuesday, but we'll let you know in advance. Now, Mark, we're on YouTube. Just to remind everyone, we're not visual on YouTube. We are audible on YouTube.
And that's good.
It is good, isn't it?
It's nice to have just another platform where people can listen to our mild-mannered revelry.
Absolutely.
So that's the end of that conversation, I'm guessing.
No, Mark, it isn't, actually. Because do you know what's happened? Do you know what they've gone and done, those nasty people at Google?
They're not nasty, but...
Well, hear what I've got to...
They are.
Well, listen to what I've got to say, then you can make your mind up.
Okay.
This isn't a first for us.
What, brushing with authority?
Brushing with censorship.
Yeah.
I got an email, and I put this up on the socials, where one of our podcasts that I put on YouTube has been removed because it violates the code of conduct. A part of me was like, get in. A part of me was like, which bit? What have we said? And basically it was referring to, I guess, misinformation around the vaccines that isn't in line with the WHO. Now, I had a flick through, couldn't find anything, and I think you had a flick through, and I think you might have found the offending article, right?
It's a sentence, and the sentence is
something you said.
Yeah.
Figures. Knew it.
The sentence is something along the lines of the vaccine certificate per se will not stop the spread of COVID.
Right.
That's why I think they've taken exception to.
Right.
And it was in the context of, and I think we might need to allude to the fucking dopey-ass Prime Minister's stupid...
What, yesterday?
For fuck's sake, seriously, I'm cynical. I have a load of alternative realities racing in my head every minute of the day. But for somebody to sit there, having presided over the only thing that he's done properly, which is the mass vaccination, better than any other country, bar Israel.
Quicker than...
And there's a reason why Israel's top, because that's going to be the home of the Great Reset. But anyway...
Oh.
Maybe
teaser.
Maybe that we can't just do this in mailbag. But
No.
But having presided over something, the only thing that he has done and his government have done well in this whole drama, to say that lockdown has been the reason and not the vaccination flies in the face of every piece of scientific evidence. It's because then you could go to Sweden where they haven't had a lockdown and people are going, oh, there's more cases there now because they're behind on the vaccinations. No matter how cynical you are about how good the vaccinations are and everything else, it is obvious they are having an effect. And the other thing that is having an effect, which I have said every week for the last however many months, seasonality. COVID was always going to be at the behest of seasonality because flu is at the behest of seasonality. Right. It's the same family. You don't get mass flu epidemics in a British summer.
Yeah,
doesn't happen.
Check the stats for the last 5-10 years, right?
Yeah, it's seasonality, and it's linked to vitamin D, which goes with seasonality, which goes because the sun comes out in the summer. So, what are we talking about? Oh yeah, so the offending line. That
Spoiler alert: the sun comes out in the summer.
Yeah.
God, you've 2 spoilers you've done now.
We're almost at the head of the podcast game, aren't we? You can see others following us. I'll tell you what, that will come out again.
People will be talking about sun and summer in the next week.
I reckon Daily Mail.
Watch the weather, man. They'll be all over that.
Well, let's have a look then. I reckon next 3 or 4 days, there'll be a lot more sun and summer than there has been. Yeah. Anyway, so blah, 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 blah. Oh, so the offending line. What I meant by the offending line is, per se, the transmission of COVID does not get stopped by someone saying, I have been vaccinated twice.
Absolutely
the vaccination,
right. Yes.
It isn't showing the certificate.
We were talking about the passports and getting into establishments, weren't we?
Yeah. Now, I think what YouTube have done is gone...
Well, he's not listened to it for a start.
He's gone... Well,
it's got to be a he because they're evil.
Yeah.
Aren't they?
Oh, can I do the Nigel Farage in a minute? So I think what they've done is they're seeing that as me being anti-COVID passport, which I am 100%.
But that's not what we've been violated for, an opinion on a passport. That's not what we've been shut down for. Shut down.
But it's because we violated World Health Organization, didn't we?
It was contrary information to what the WHO are saying about
actually,
vaccines. We're not saying any. We weren't knocking the vaccine. We were talking about passports.
But that's amazing. If we got shut down when we weren't actually knocking it, how much is being taken off? Yeah, that is frightening.
So I went back to the appeal. So we've made no mention of this. And please point out the offending line. Kind regards, Mark. What? It's not I'm putting my name to this.
No. You got a reputation to keep up.
Yeah. Where are we?
Nigel Farage, very quickly.
Oh, right.
He's been doing something recently in a podcast I listened to. Have been talking about these. You can basically get a celebrity to wish you happy birthday or do a message, like a video message to your mates.
Right.
And there's loads in the States and some like really big names.
Okay.
And Nigel Farage is on one called Cameo. But it goes literally from, a very Z-list celebrity on EastEnders to like real Hollywood actors.
Right.
And you pay them like 450 quid and you get a 20-second video of them going. And then you tell them what you want to say. And they either do their well-known line or whatever, or they become all sort of, almost a parody of themselves.
Yeah. Okay.
And Nigel Farage is on this. I think it's £63, his going rate. Right. So he'll do a message.
Kind of £63 too much, really.
Someone has asked him to either wish happy birthday or something to someone called Hugh Janus.
He didn't, did he?
Yeah. Now, this is what I'm going to say. This is the interesting
Mike
thing.
Hunt.
Yeah. Oh, sorry,
What?
Mrs. Damer.
What? I said Mike Hunt.
Yeah.
Didn't I?
So, with Hugh Janus, the person that's done it, the person that's done it put up the video of Farage doing it.
Right, yeah.
And everybody's gone, haha, he didn't even know he's saying it. What a sucker. Ha ha ha. 10,000 tweets in the first hour. Haha, this guy doesn't know what he's about. He's actually said it and he's just stood there. Look at him. Watch this video of him doing it on Cameo.
Yeah, Farage knows nothing. He knows nothing about how the media works,
Yeah,
does he?
he knows nothing about like selling or marketing.
He knows
Idiot.
nothing about viral
Look at us.
content.
And then someone else has gone, oh, they didn't use Mike Hunt, but there was something else. And they went,
Mike Hunt.
Yes,
Honestly, Mark, what are you doing to me?
I'm going to get him to say this. And everyone's going, oh, look at us. And he's there going, that's £63 times a million, isn't it? Such brilliance by him. But it just made me laugh at that people,
Idiots calling someone an idiot.
Yeah, when they've been the idiot.
Happy birthday, Hugh Janus. I've heard you're a massive fan.
Brilliant. Some thoughts come to me like butterflies in the week.
Mm-hmm.
I write them down on my little notepad, just like you do, on my phone. Oh, you take screenshots of your thoughts, don't you? That's it.
Oh, well,
that's the difference between us.
I've been listening to you. So instead of taking screenshots, I now copy and paste the link.
What?
But just let me show you.
Shut the front door.
No, but so there's a problem with this. So those are all my notes for today's.
Oh, I can see why the problem is. They're just a list of links and you don't know what the hell each one of them is.
Nope.
You're halfway there. But I'm really encouraged by the progress you've made.
It was a lot easier when I had a photograph. So I've got one here. Twitter.com.
I can't argue with that. It's a really valid point.
/haggis_UK.
What the hell's that?
No idea. Now I've got to go into it now.
You've almost got to look at then the / because it's not long enough, so you can't see what the full URL is because it might have the name of the article in the
No, it's just /haggis_UK. So I'll tell you what it is. Oh, fuck.
What?
Who's your favourite man in all the world? Not? Yeah. Who's the biggest wanker in the world?
Oh, God, there's so many, Mark. Put me on the spot. I don't.
Who's given you the most angst? We're probably going to have to cut this out, aren't we?
Do I know him?
Yeah.
Is it one of our friends? I don't have any venom towards anyone, do I?
You do.
Who?
I'll show you the picture.
Oh, yeah, right, wanker. Actually, I haven't got a problem with him.
You haven't?
No. I've got a problem with the people he employs.
Okay.
Anyway.
We'll leave that one. But that's what /haggis_UK was.
Right. What is he? Is he grown haggises in that now? Is he?
That's
this might be unsavoury, Mark, but I put thoughts down as they arrive in my head, and this one was. I'm just going to run with it. Now we all like the smell of our own farts, don't we, Mark? There's a thing we're talking about gut. There's poo mentioned in this thing already, and there will be poo mentioned again coming up. Poo warning, poo trigger warning. There's more poo coming.
Yeah,
but we all like the smell of our own farts. Yeah. Don't take part in this. You have an opinion like everybody else.
Those who know me are absolutely at the moment going,
You look disgusted.
I'm not good with farts. Let's just move on.
Okay, I like the smell of my own farts, Mark.
Okay.
But I do draw the line when you get back in the car and you're reminded that you did a fart before you got out the car.
Okay.
You basically feel like you're sitting back in someone else's fart. I don't like that.
Right.
That's unpleasant.
Okay.
Just wanted to see if you shared the same view.
No, because I have a life.
Do you ever fart? You like the Queen? Do you fart? You don't?
No.
Me.
Just lucky like that, I suppose.
We're at 20 minutes already. Time for any bookmarks. I could leave some. Was Lenin stuffed?
I've spoken again with Russian spy and she said yes.
Really?
Yeah. And he's taken away every so often out of the tomb shut while he's redone.
She would probably have inside information, wouldn't she?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what it says on The Guardian.
Okay.
So I'm not quite sure I want to go here now. It doesn't say he's stuffed. This is from 2016, so it's 5 years out of date.
I don't think Lenin would get out of date, would he? Sort of out of date.
Yeah. When Lenin died in January 1924, no one planned to preserve his body for quite this long. So 97 years now, I think. Is that right? In fact, the renowned pathologist, Alexei Abrikosov, who performed the autopsy on the body, cut its major arteries of the body. And he later have said if he'd known what was going to happen, he wouldn't have done that, because apparently keeping blood in all the arteries into the tissues, and you then put embalming fluid through, it then preserves. But they didn't do that. After the autopsy, Lenin's body was temporarily embalmed to prevent it from immediately decomposing, while for 4 days the corpse was kept in an open casket at Union House in the centre of Moscow. Crowds of 50,000 people passed through the hall where he lay, despite freezing temperatures of -7. As droves of people kept coming from all over the country, the government moved the casket to a temporary wooden mausoleum on Red Square. As it was so cold, the body was still intact, and it was only 56 days later, as warmer weather slowly edged in, that Soviet officials decided to permanently preserve the body. Okay. But what they actually did, there's lots of guff on this, but they tried all sorts of things, but they basically created their own embalming fluid.
Okay. Well, I guess maybe it's a liquid stuffing. Stuff has been.
Okay. Right. Yeah, I didn't think he's like stuffed with feathers. You know what I mean? Or old socks. You know what I mean? I think that
used carrier bags.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
that's a great shout, isn't it?
Bag for death. Bring back your Russian revolutionary leader, and I'll give you a new one.
You're on fire tonight. Their embalming fluid was so good that other countries came to them for it.
Yeah.
The unique technique developed by Soviet scientists has also resulted in several customers from abroad. Besides Lenin, the lab in Moscow also embalmed, amongst others, Vietnamese President Ho Chi Minh, Bulgarian leader Georgy Dimitrov, and North Korean leaders Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il. Not to mention Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin, whose embalmed body lay alongside Lenin's from 1953 to 61. Didn't know that.
No.
So now moving on, interview with Miguel. So we had a chat with Miguel yesterday at Atlas Biomed. It's really good. So we'll let you get into that, and then we'll come back in a bit.
Yeah,
here it is. Hi Miguel, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
We spoke a few weeks ago because you were kind enough to go through my gut biome results, which was great. So it's quite the personal service. I mean, I think it's probably worth saying you don't do that for everyone who does these tests. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. It's not something we're going to be advertising. So I'm really grateful for you to do that. And we had a bit of a chat then. We said it would be good to have a bit of a kind of wider chat that we can record and everyone can hear. So you work at Atlas Biomed. Do you want to give us a little rundown of what you do there?
Sure. So my role at Atlas Biomed is Director of Research and Innovation. And so I work in R&D. And it covers a wide range of things. So from working on some of the features that you will see in your microbiome results. So, when you go through your results and you see how the bacteria might be presented to you, or for example, a new thing is that you see inflammatory in your microbiome, or anti-inflammatory potential index. And that is something that I was working on for a few months last year. And is being developed into a part of the report. So that's the kind of research that I do in terms of bringing something new to our users, people like you who do a stool test and get their biome checked out.
I don't know how we really got into it, but we're obviously, we cover all sorts of things, kind of, you know, mental health and our own and other people's, and technology and social. And we started to get into the kind of brain and gut. I mean, I don't want to go on about my gut troubles, but we've already covered it on a podcast. But I've had some of my bowel removed with diverticulitis. And I think since then, I've become obviously more aware of my own gut health. But what I've always found up until that point where I was diagnosed and had that op, I always found that GPs or any kind of healthcare professionals that you go to were very reluctant to kind of get into gut health. And I guess what my kind of own learnings, and I think it kind of makes more sense to me now, that because it's so complex and everybody is so individual, well, now as we've discovered, it's so connected with the rest of your body, it's not just an isolated thing. It makes more sense that it's such a complicated thing. You can see why people don't touch it. And I guess my introduction to Atlas and you was just to kind of, what we talk about in the podcast a lot, is taking accountability of our own health and doing something about it. Whereas, you know, I guess growing up, it's always a case of, if you're not well, or if you don't understand something about your body, you go and speak to a professional about it. On one side, it's a very complex issue. On the other side of it, there is the technology and the information out there now to start joining the dots. We started to cover the gut, and then the gut-brain axis, then we've talked about the vagus nerve. So essentially, my probably first main question is what it is, what part it plays, and then why should we care about it?
Sure. So the gut-brain axis is it's like the internet connection communicating your gut and your brain in a way, and you have a wired connection that is quite strong and reliable, and that sends a huge amount of messages from the gut up to the brain. So bottom up, it's a really, really strong signal. It's sending a lot of information into not just the brain in general, the part of the brain that deals with emotions, which is why we have this idea that the gut brain connection is so important in terms of mood, for example, and anything that is emotional regulation, because the cable that connects that internet kind of communication between the gut and the brain is called the vagus nerve, that you've talked about in other podcasts.
Yeah.
It happens to innervate the whole of the colon. So that means that it's like a mesh of tiny little fiberglass cables picking up signals from the whole of the colon, and it blends together into a massive chunky cable that goes all the way up your spine and straight into the center of the brain. And that's where you find in the anatomy of the brain, this area called the limbic system, which is the emotional control section of the brain. So it deals with the fight or flight response, and not only that, again, as you mentioned, the gut-brain axis is important because the gut is connected with the rest of the body. Well, the brain in itself, it's got loads of anatomical features, loads of anatomical pieces to it, like a jigsaw, but they don't work in isolation. They work in conjunction with the whole of the brain. Yeah. So for you to be able to make decisions on a day-to-day basis, to know what you're doing next, to think about the future, to recall things from the recent past, from 5 minutes ago, but also from 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and to make all of those connections so you have a fully working, brain that is functional and everything is ticking along. The limbic system needs to be working in a way that doesn't take over. Because when it takes over, if anybody can think of a situation where you were completely stressed out, not a little bit stressed, but just like panicky, what can you do then? Nothing. You're frozen in that kind of situation. Yeah. And that is the part of the brain, that limbic system, that the gut is literally connected by means of the vagus nerve into. So it's quite significant, that kind of connection. And then you've got, as I was using an analogy of an internet connection, you've got a Wi-Fi kind of connection as well, which is based on different molecules that are produced by your gut bacteria, or that are in the gut and may not be produced by your gut bacteria directly, but are part of the ecosystem of the gut, and they go up or down according to how many lactobacilli you might have, or how many bifidobacteria you might have. So some of these molecules will be the direct product of bacteria eating the food that you put in your mouth and doing something with it. And we can talk about them later.
Yeah.
And some other ones are molecules that will be in your body and will contribute to inflammation, for example, or, regulation of your immune system and so on. So when I talk about molecules, if people don't get the concept of a molecule, just think of a little droplet of something floating around your gut, and they do a number of things. They could be hormones, they could be neurotransmitters, so people know about dopamine and serotonin and all these kind of things. All of those molecules play a role in that Wi-Fi. That is what wider is not using cables, it's just going through your blood, through the whole of your body. So you have inflammatory molecules going through the whole of your body, anti-inflammatory molecules going through the whole of your body, and they go from the gut, and some of them happen to land in the brain. So there's this really complex way of communicating between the gut and the brain, that and this is just from the gut up into the brain. The brain is also communicating down using the same mechanisms. It's a lot weaker, so it's more binary as well. It's very much kind of a yes and no kind of messages. Of like open your bowel, do not open your bowel, move the muscle in the gut so you can have a poo, do not move it. This kind of produce more mucus, produce less mucus. All of these kind of things these messages are coming from the brain down, whereas the messages that are coming from the gut up are super complicated. You need like a Watson IBM computer to decipher what the hell is going on. Exactly.
You need a decent computer to process all that. That's what I was going to ask about, the up-down kind of. I never thought of it like that, but that kind of makes sense because there's so much going on in the gut, isn't there? And the brain has to decipher that.
And it tells you about things like whether you are full or not. So there will be some molecules that are peptides that are partly resembling neurotransmitters, but partly resembling digestive molecules. So they're kind of like hybrid, again, like a hybrid wave of communication that tells the brain whether you're full, whether you need to eat more, something that is going to fill you up more quickly or less quickly. So whether you crave something more sugary or carby because that is what your body is asking you to have, or whether you want something a bit more consistent, whether you're thirsty or not. There's a lot of these kind of like really basic signals that you need for survival. But equally, there's a lot that we haven't tapped into so much that is around intuition, and people get butterflies in the stomach, for example. So that is, there's something that is telling you something's going to happen. So, or if anybody suffers with anxiety, for example, and you do get like a grip in your bowel when you're anxious, and what is that going on there? Is it your dopamine that is working at that point, and there's too much of it, or what is going on? There's a lot of communication from the gut up that is we're going to be learning about in the next few years, because it's a very emerging kind of a field of science, and it used to be largely unknown. We did know about the gut-brain connection for years. Probably we have known for the last 15-20 years about it, but we haven't got to know it in the detail that we know it today until very recently. And now, because it's such a hot topic, because literally that communication between the gut and the brain affects every single tissue you can think of in your body, your eyes, your skin, your hair, your heart, your muscles, everything. This is booming in terms of research and finding the connections between the gut and the rest of the body, not just the brain. And probably give it another 5 years and we'll have a lot more tangible information about it, because at the moment this is a huge amount of information that is quite complex to understand. So,
and I guess what I touched on at the beginning was that because it's so complex, I think that's probably why a lot of healthcare professionals don't touch it. They probably have a basic understanding of the mechanics, but every person that turns up at the doctor's has a different story, has a different, set
Well,
of
exactly.
different diet, different environment, different lifestyles.
Yeah, absolutely. And the things that we do know is that obviously nutrition and your diet and what you put in your mouth at the end of the day will have a huge effect on the gut, because it is a tube at the end of the day that is processing that food at different stages. And some of it is more mechanical, some of it involves your gut bacteria. So there's a lot of different processes, but at the end of the day, what you put one end needs to go out the other end, and that's the basics of it. So
absolutely.
You can think how food is going to have a huge impact. But then again, we know from very good quality research that is not that recent now, probably like 5-7 years ago, that the amount of movement that you do, the amount of exercise, physical activity that you do, also has an impact on this thing called your microbial diversity. So the diversity of your gut flora, which is a little bit like the diversity in a city. If you have a gut that is, where everybody's just blonde and blue-eyed, it gets a bit boring to walk around the street because everybody looks exactly the same. It would be a bit freaky as well. But if you walk through London, there's all kind of physiognomies and shapes and sizes and colors, and that's what you want your gut to be. You want your gut to be a bit like, walking around Shoreditch or something. Do you want that kind of? Do you want a Shoreditch gut? I should patent that.
Yeah, you should. A hipster gut, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, maybe, a hipster can be a bit
what
niche,
you mean.
so maybe,
multicultural,
but diverse,
open-minded,
multicultural, exactly, that kind of thing. Yeah, because that has what we do know is, again, so that was just an example. So if you move more, if you exercise more, if you have a good amount of physical activity, that has an impact on that diversity. And then diversity is one of the things that, when I was saying the science around the gut microbiome is emerging and so on. But one of the things that we do know for sure is that diversity, that quirkiness that makes you unique, the more you have of that, the better you are protected from a number of different things, from immune issues to cancer to everything you want to look out for. There's been studies done to show that diversity has a protective effect. So again, just for those listening, it doesn't mean that it cures it, but it means that you will be better protected. And if you do happen to get any of these conditions, if you happen to get cancer or autoimmune condition or neurodegenerative condition, whatever it is, you are less likely to get the full-blown effects of it and more likely to react better to medication as well. And that's important.
Yeah. I mean, we've touched on it on the pod. We have been known to talk about COVID and various other things, but in terms of immunity, is it right? I saw a stat that it was like 70% of our immunity is based or kind of founded in the gut, or
that's correct. And again, without getting into the ins and outs of COVID, what the studies that have been done, because this is such a fertile ground for research, there has been a fair amount of studies done on the microbiome of those with COVID and those without COVID, and the comparison between the two. So what we do know is that if you happen to get COVID and you have a wider diversity, you are less likely to have the full-blown effects of it. The severity of the effects that you would probably experience if your diversity was lower. So that's an interesting fact. And there's been a fair amount of research done in that kind of area. Again, it's always multifactorial. These things, you can never just pinpoint it to diversity, because you could have the biggest diversity and then still have COVID and be unlucky.
Have a heart condition, a lung condition.
Exactly.
Whatever,
or be overweight or whatever. There's a number of the risk factors. And studies are not perfect. They always look at things in a certain amount of isolation, because if you expand the kind of complexity of the studies, it becomes more difficult to actually figure out what's going on in the study. So they need to kind of like chunk down the diversity of what you're looking at. Otherwise, it's just too difficult to assess. But we can say that if you have a better diversity, you're always going to fare better than if you have a lower diversity.
I guess, like I touched on earlier, if it's such a big part of us, I guess surface area of an organ. I mean, your stomach is an organ. Is that right? I'm saying things now. That's why you're on here, so you can correct me. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of the gut, and the surface area is big. It's actually a physically big part of us. But as it's such a big part of our physiology and our health, mental health, body health, everything, then why don't we know more about it? I think maybe 10 years ago I heard of Yakult in terms and knew it had bacteria and thought, sounds like bacteria might be good for the stomach. It's only kind of maybe 5 or 6 years ago that it kind of, when, like most of these things, when a condition happens to you, you're suddenly more aware of it. We touched on it a couple of pods ago. Until it kind of hits you or it involves you in your life or someone, you tend not to give two shits about it, really, which you start to think, this is awful. Why have we not known this earlier? Is it purely down to science? Is it purely down to understanding? We've been around for thousands of years, so why are we slow to the party on our gut health? Or are we not? Or maybe it's just one of those things. I'm just late to the party. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that there is something about the gut that it obviously involves thinking about poo, which is not something that people like to think about, or a lot of people like to think about. It's even if you ask somebody, do you look at your poo when you go to the toilet? Which probably you should do, just to have an idea whether it's actually it looks all right, or whether there's blood in it or mucus or whatever, which can tell you a lot of information about your health. But a lot of people don't do it, and a lot of people, when you ask them, they, oh no, I wouldn't do that. So there is that kind of attitude. And then it's combined with the fact that in certain countries there's not so much a culture of prevention, and that is changing. And probably with the with the pandemic and so on, is probably going to change a lot more. Whereas in other countries, there's a lot more emphasis on preventing, on what might happen, and actually keeping on top of things.
Proactive.
So if you look at Eastern Europe, for example, they use fermented foods traditionally. They have done for centuries, and they talk about the gut a lot more than we do in the West. If you look at preventive cultures, for example, I grew up in Spain, and people do worry about getting tests done, for example. And it's very strange in Spain. If you haven't had a blood test done in the last 6 months, people think you're weird. So for the typical Brit that normally has a blood test done once in 5 years or something, just because because it's mandatory. The NHS sends you a letter, and for the typical person who's sticking along, somebody obviously who has a condition, that might be a different matter. But typical person who's just growing, and you get to 40 or 45 and you get a letter from the NHS, or you need a prostate check, or you need to check your cholesterol, and you're saying, oh wow, that might be the first test I've had done in the last 5 years or something. Whereas in other countries it's just routine. And that's the way it works. So there is this but then again, we have really excellent surgery, for example. So the focus has been on when the shit hits the fan, then really tackle it at that point, as opposed to invest millions in checking your cholesterol and whether you're inflamed or not at 40. So it's kind of a combination of different things, but there is a growing awareness of taking care of yourself, not just through the gut, but the whole of the body. And it's expanding from a more female kind of oriented situation, where females have always been. Women are much greater at taking care of themselves and actually doing me time and thinking about their health than blokes. It's the kind of like the typical British bloke attitude is, it will go away. If I wait long enough, it will disappear, kind of thing. And
you're right. You're absolutely right.
And I think, I'm Spanish, I'm British, and I can say, Spanish blokes are not much different, to be quite honest. They're just the same. They just wait until things go away. So it's a bit of a male female thing. And I think that the world is more aware to emotions now, that are considered to be more kind of like a feminine thing, more of a female kind of energy. And as we're changing towards that, I think we are tapping into, we need to actually get a grip to our own health and actually see what is going on with our body. And in the midst of all of that, there is a growing interest in health and well-being, and this is for everybody to see. You only need to go on the internet or get the Sun, or the Daily Mail, and there will be loads of health features and healthy eating. And so it's not like 20 years ago or 30 years ago where this was, you couldn't see anything about healthy eating in a tabloid. Whereas now it's like all over the place.
It's weird if you don't see it. Yeah,
exactly. So I think there's a change in that kind of aspect of society that is quite interesting, and I find quite positive. We're moving in the right direction, and gut health will keep growing. It's one of those things that people will acknowledge more, because there's always going to be an element of whatever you're putting in your body is going to affect your gut, and your gut is connected to the rest of your body. So why not take care of what you eat and your gut as a starting point? And again, it's not going to always be the silver bullet that sorts out everything. You could have other things going on that make it a bit more difficult to engage with that kind of journey, but it's always going to be a good starting point.
When I had my colon removed and I had a stoma, an ileostomy, so I had a stoma bag for about 3-4 months. You are so in touch with what's going in your mouth and what's coming out, because it's coming out visibly out of your stomach, which totally changed my view. Now, I would argue now that when I had that connection with food and the understanding, because I'd almost see it a couple of hours. Sorry, this is, it's like you were saying, there's part of my body not wanting to talk about poo coming out of my stomach. Hopefully no one's eating their tea at the moment, but I'm feeling, this is the thing. It's okay. It happens. There's thousands, millions of people who are in this same situation. But when this happened, and you're seeing the result of what you're eating and what's been processed a couple of hours later, so you were in such a different mindset, because I was super careful about what I was putting in my mouth. And this is a very simple mechanic, and as I'm saying it's sounding simple, but I think a lot of us really struggle with this. Those 3 months, this is the best way I can describe it. I've never felt so clean in terms of my overall health. That was physical health, that was gut health, that was mental health. I never felt as good as when I had a stoma. And I still haven't created that cleanliness or healthiness since I had that. We talk about habits a lot on the podcast, and streaks and habits, how to build healthy habits. I quickly went back into the old habits of not thinking about what I was putting in my mouth, because I lost that connection and I lost that immediacy with what I was eating and the relevance and the context of what it was doing to me. I'm not saying we all have to kind of start looking at our feces every 5 minutes, but
I know exactly what you mean.
We do lose that connection, don't we?
Yeah, and the habits work in both positive and negative ways as well, and it can be quite perverse, because you could know that whatever you're doing is actually not agreeing with you, but you continue doing it.
Do it anyway.
It could be drinking, it could be whatever you're eating at night, and how many people I've spoken to over the years who say, oh, whenever I eat bread or dairy or whatever it is for them, it's not for everybody, but whatever it is for them, I feel really bloated, and I feel like saying, so why the hell not you don't stop eating it? Have you not thought that the logical thing to do would be to stop eating that for a few days, see that you feel different, and on the basis of that, make an informed decision as to whether you want to continue eating it or cut it down or cut it out completely? And I might do that. And I'm thinking, is that difficult to think? Probably not. For most people, it wouldn't be that difficult to think, but it's it gets so ingrained in your brain, that kind of behavior, that is almost like, oh, I'll go and pay somebody to tell me, when I could just think of, I feel like, sorry, love, I'm not going to charge you for this advice, because you should have thought of that yourself. So I'm going to give you this as a freebie. But, people do pay a professional to go and tell them that they need to do this. And they think it's completely weird to stop eating bread for a week and saying,
how can you not?
Well, I'll try that.
Bread and milk is what we have every day, right? But also, we talked about a minute ago about this. We talked about the science of it and the information that's involved. We'll probably come back to that. But also, you talked about gut instinct. I guess what we haven't kind of talked about as such is listening to your own body without the need for even taking measurement and science. There's an element about just listen to what it's doing.
And we have lost a lot of that. And this is when I was talking about intuition. I'm not talking about like witchcraft or like thinking, I can see dead people. It's not that. It's it's feeling, being in touch with your own body. If your body is talking to you and your gut is saying, saying, look, don't eat this, or this is how I feel when you put whatever you have put in your mouth. It could be bread, it could be peppers, whatever it is, I feel I'm cramping here, I'm bloated, this gas that smells foul, whatever it is. But you ignore it and you keep doing it, and you do it again the following day, and you think, okay, and your gut must be thinking, it's like an abusive relationship in a way. It's like, well, I keep talking to you and you ignore me completely and just keep doing the same shit every day. And so
and I guess that kind of self-harm to a certain degree, if you know it's damaging for you, we keep doing it, that is a form of self-harm for all sorts of reasons.
It's almost like what I was saying before, that it can be a quite a perverse kind of situation where it's self-sabotaging in a way. It's kind of like saying, but and it only takes a little bit of awareness. And again, there's no excuse. 2021, I mean, how many bloody apps are out there to to have a gratefulness journal, or mindfulness on the go, or whatever it is you want to do around being more aware, more mindful, more kind of spiritual, more in touch with your own body, whatever. There's 100 apps out there. Those are props. It's lovely to have them, but you don't necessarily need them. All you need to do is to just bloody listen to what your gut is telling you. If you're bloated every night after whatever you're eating, make a note of what were the ingredients in that dinner, and say, okay, well, I think I'm spotting a pattern in here. I think it must be I'm using loads of chili pepper, and that really upsets me. I wake up at 2:00 in the morning, with a burning gut. But I keep putting the chili in because I really love the flavor. Okay, well, what is more important, that you get a good night's sleep and you don't wake up at 2:00 in the morning with a stomach burning, or that you have the enjoyment of the chili? Can you put something else in there? So there's like those simple things that I think we have lost connection with.
That can have an effect on your mental health as well. If you're
absolutely
lack of sleep, or it's just bothering you, or you're just in pain, or you feel uncomfortable all day and you can't concentrate, etc. It's going to start having an effect. And you talked at the beginning about, on our previous chat, you talked about hypersensitivity, or you mentioned it at the beginning of this, because when you talked about inflammation, and that was something I just wanted to pick up on.
It's around, your gut can become hypersensitive to whatever it is that you keep putting in there, and you ignore the messages, and it comes to a point that can actually affect your mental well-being. So it can affect your mental well-being because it can insidiously, it means that you might not get a good night's sleep, that you mentioned earlier, or that is always like a latent thing there, that the pain or the discomfort in your gut may not be such that it is overwhelming, but it's kind of like always there. So you feel conscious about it, and you feel that you may not want to do something like going on your bike or getting out and doing a run or something, because you're scared that something's going to happen, or that you're going to need the loo or something. So that can have, for a number of reasons, it can have a detrimental effect on your mental well-being. So that kind of thing is that hypersensitivity to a situation, whatever you're putting in your mouth, that is affecting your gut, that if you keep doing it, it's just going to get worse. And the only way to assess whether it is actually the bread or the peppers or whatever it is that it might be, because it's 100 things for 100 different people, it's just basically just making a list of what you're eating, trying to figure out what it might be. And I'm not talking about getting into complicated diets where you exclude things and so on. Just literally just try to change whatever you're doing for a few days and see if there is an effect, and then just go from there, because it's not any more complicated than that. And just like play around a little bit with it. But typical things that people react to are ultra processed foods that you buy in the supermarket, and will have loads of hidden ingredients. You read the labels and they have long list of ingredients that you cannot even pronounce. And if your gut is sensitive already, and you have a whole whack of foods that are processed in excess, because they don't need to be that processed to be kind of like tasty and nutritious, you're putting a lot of extra baggage on a vehicle that is already overloaded. And so try to be kind to the gut when you're in that kind of situation, because again, it's not going to be just limited to the gut. It's going to be is going to have a ramifications around the health of the whole of your body and your mental health as well.
Yeah. So again, in your experience and your time doing this, have you seen any particular, I guess, traits, personality traits, or disorders, or kind of behaviors, or things that are strongly linked or influenced by gut health? You already kind of talked about skin. There's obviously kind of, we're talking about organs. Your skin is an organ as well, isn't it? So quality of skin in terms of hydration and just good gut health anyway. But any kind of, I guess, mental health behaviors or traits or...
Yeah, so I worked for years in mental health, particularly two areas: mood disorders and addiction.
Right.
In addiction is kind of another discussion for another time, because it's quite complex and there's loads of other things around it as well. But in mood disorders, typically, at one end you've got the depression and the other end you've got the anxiety, and a big spectrum in between.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely, what we do know about the connection between the gut and the brain, again, the diversity really plays a big role. The typical kind of bacteria that we know are beneficial for the gut and also for the rest of the body, your bifidobacteria and lactobacilli, for example, which are in fermented foods like your yogurt or kefirs, and any fermented dairy kind of or alternative dairy, like your coconut yogurts and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And also things like fermented vegetables, so sauerkraut and pickles and olives and things like that will also be a really good kind of source of those bacteria. Those can have a really positive effect. And again, I wouldn't expect that somebody who's had depression for 10 years and they've had, they've been on antidepressants, they're suddenly going to have a little bit of, some pickles and yogurt and they're going to be cured.
Yeah.
But what you can expect is, and there's some good evidence about it as well, is that with the right approach and a sustained approach as well, so not something you do for 3 days and expect a miracle situation, but something you do a little bit at a time every day, for a while, you're probably if you're on drugs, you're probably going to react better to the drugs, whether you're on antidepressants or anxiolytics. If you're not, because you're either undiagnosed, but you have a tendency, or you have been diagnosed, but you're not actually on a treatment, so you could be doing, talking therapies or whatever, as a treatment that is not pharma based, then that can also have a supportive role. And more than anything, it's knowing that you're taking some control as well. So with any condition, and particularly with mental health, you could feel that you're at the mercy of the drugs, or you're at the mercy of the condition, whether you're on the you're on the drugs or you're actually just affected by the condition, because it's an element of both anxiety and depression that whenever it hits you, you cannot really do anything to remedy it. It hits you like a truck, and it's there, and you didn't expect it, but it's there and it takes over. So if you do something that actually allows you to take some control in your life by choosing these kind of foods that we've discussed, that could be beneficial for your gut, obviously on the basis of a diet that's got loads of brightly colored vegetables and fruits and so on, so you're feeding your gut the right kind of like baseline, plus the extra fermented foods and your own. Even if it's a chore, because it could be a chore or could make you feel even more anxious just thinking about it. The idea is a little bit of at the time, it's better than actually just ignoring it, because either it's too much of a chore because you're depressed, or it just makes you hyper even just thinking about it if you're anxious.
That's a really good point. We do talk about baby steps and taking small steps on the pod a lot, because anything can be overwhelming. Too much information. The pressure to do something, the pressure to change things immediately. So that is great. Just introducing things slowly.
And the pressure is huge. I had to take a step back of social media, because I was I found Instagram was very addictive for me, and I you see all these like bloody pictures of salads and healthy eating all the time, or according to how you the people you follow, of course, you could be following somebody else completely, but if you follow like healthy eating and healthy people, then it's just like overwhelming, and you think, oh God, suddenly I just feel like my diet is shit because I should be having all these like Buddha bowls in the morning with like 20 different berries, and they must look incredible, so they are more nutritious, and and it's just not real life. And I think that is, and that's just one bit. So if on top of that you've got people around you also telling you, or you turn on the telly and it's telling you how good it is for you to eat healthily, and you just feel either completely not bothered because you're really down, or you feel attacked by the information because you're feeling a bit hyper, then it's rather than actually trying to sort it all out in one day and just go to Whole Foods and spend £200 in like healthy things, it's just a little bit at the time, because anything that you do is going to be a little bit at the time. If you want a muscular body and you want to be like, you want to be like completely buff and sexy looking, it doesn't happen in 2 days going to the gym. You need to kill yourself in the gym for like 2 years to get the to get the pecs and the biceps. So if you want them, because that's important for you, then you need to work towards that. And so it's the same happens with health and diet and so on. You cannot just like create the ideal diet overnight. Just like go little by little, see what you like, see what you don't like, make your own version of it, listen to what your gut is telling you, and that's already engaging you and actually making you control the situation, as opposed to just let the press and the social media and peer pressure control you.
Yeah, no, that's great. I was going to talk about technology, and obviously you've already kind of talked about taking ownership of your own health, which is great. So I'm going to cover that one off. But yeah, I think, we talked about gut instinct, people listening to their bodies and taking ownership. Obviously, there's lots of information. We've talked about that. There's lots of tools out there. Obviously, you work with a company that provide tools to find out more about your health, which we're going to point to, and Eleanor's kindly given our listeners a nice discount, so I'll be putting that out. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is everything is out there for people to take ownership and control of their own gut health in this instance, and largely their own mental health. There are things out there, but we all need to look after each other, don't we? But there's also an element of people have got to stand up, and which is my belief anyway. You've got, it's no point looking at someone else. No one's going to look after your gut health. You're the only one that's gonna. We're back to what you put in your mouth, which I think is it's a really important part of this. But I guess if you've got any thoughts on the use of tech and the use of the information we've got and listening to, sorry, I've thrown a lot of things at you. My brain's going, but
yeah, no, that's fine. I do think technology is really important, and it's going to give us a lot of mileage for taking control of our own health and well-being. I obviously work for Atlas Biomed, and our company runs on technology in a way. You can get your results via your mobile phone. You can interact with an app and see, you can even take a photo of what you're eating, and it's going to tell you what the ingredients are. So it's kind of an educational tool in there. So you learn that if you had carrots, they provide you with fiber and vitamin A, which is good for your lactobacilli, and so you can get to know this kind of this kind of lingo of what gut health is and the bacteria and so on, which is in a sense it's that rich engagement with learning that is going to make it all sink in much better and engage you with the process in a much more effective way. On the flip side, you have the obsession with technology. So if somebody's completely obsessed with, I've seen people completely obsessed with putting everything in MyFitnessPal or whatever app they use, and they just to the gram. So it's like, oh, I've had 15 grams of this and 20 grams of that, and I just don't think that is healthy. Whatever way I think about it, I can see a point for it. If you are an athlete and you're going to compete in the Olympics, and you need to be following a protocol to the letter, because that is going to get you gold or make you lose the gold, and that's your job. And you're there and you have the whole responsibility of a whole nation backing you or whatever. And it's competitive sport. It's a completely different game to, me or you at home trying to figure out whether 10 grams of lettuce is going to make a difference to my health. We haven't got the algorithms, we haven't got a computer in your phone that will tell you this is exactly what you need. I'm going to print a 3D tablet that's going to give you exactly what you need today.
Yeah.
Maybe in 20 years we will, and that's what will happen. But to be fair, in 20 years, I don't think you'll need to be entering it, because there will be sensors in the house or something that will pick up how much lettuce you've eaten or something. So,
Yeah, right.
and if you want that information, you can have it. And you'll have people who live off the grid, and they'll ignore it completely as well. So the future doesn't need to be that menacing and kind of like just completely overwhelmed by technology.
Yeah.
But the whole point is that it can be quite OCD. It can be quite obsessive.
Yeah.
Compulsive in a way.
Yeah.
I personally don't resonate with that kind of way of working, on the basis that, yes, you can have a goal, and of course you need to be compliant with the goal and on top of it in order to achieve it. So if you want to lose weight, or to become more muscular, or to become whatever it is that your goal is, you need to keep on top of it to achieve it. And if there is a tool that will help you, great. But when it becomes a little bit too intrusive, and I find these tools too intrusive, I don't actually think that you gain from them. I actually think that it's data for the sake of data, which I don't agree with. So any apps that just give me, I'll tell you all about your sleep, and I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do with that? If I still get completely legless before going to bed, and I swig 2 bottles of vino tinto before going to bed, and I have a curry or something, just like half an hour before I go to bed. Why do I want to know that my REM sleep was like less deep than last night or something? So it's an extreme. I don't think that many people will do these kind of things, but and use the app. It comes with a certain type of person. But what I'm saying is that technology can be really useful. It can help you a lot. The idea of Atlas is to be non-intrusive. So it's to give you recommendations that you can take at your own pace. You said yourself that you got very extensive results with loads of recommendations. And depending on the kind of person you are, you'll take more or you take less, because you think, okay, well, I can only take this bit. And even if you just take the one thing and you say, well, Atlas told me that I need to eat more fiber, and it needs to be from 5 different colors in a week. So it needs to be purple and an orange and blah blah. So I'm going to make an effort. So when I go shopping, I'm going to put something purple, something orange, something white, in my shopping basket. So I have all sorts of color vegetables and fruits. So that's one thing that you can do very easily. All the other more granular things, if you think, okay, well, I'm really going for this hammer and tongue, I really need to sort out my gut or sort out my anxiety or whatever, I'm going to do everything that I need to do. I'm going to follow 10 things from Atlas, So just take as much or as little as you want. But when it becomes intrusive, and it's these apps that are measuring you all the time and telling you things all the time, and you need to do this now, and next day you need to lower your macros to this, so you've got too much of this or too little of that. I find that a bit in your face, to be quite honest.
There's loads more we can talk about, and I've just scribbled a handful of things down. It would be nice to revisit another day if you're up for it.
Yeah, definitely.
So thanks for your. We could talk for hours. Thanks for your time, personally, and on this pod as well. And hopefully we'll check in again sometime soon.
It'll be my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. All right. Speak soon.
Take care.
Cheers. Bye.
All the best.
Bye.
Bye.
What do you think of that?
I don't know why we had to sit here for 44 minutes in silence. Is that just the way you do your recordings?
Yeah.
All right. Does it make it easier for you to edit?
Yeah. It's just more authentic.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have actually played the interview, but I didn't have it to hand.
No, but the timing was spot on.
I wasn't. Were you uncomfortable with that, were you?
No,
I wasn't.
No.
That's what we can do.
It's nice to have a bit of peace and quiet.
Yeah. It was.
Rather than this endless jibber jabber.
Yeah. So you listened to it on a car journey, didn't you?
Yeah.
So any thoughts on that? The one thing I kind of found it, like most of these things, you get into these subjects and you just want to there's so many little branches off, and I was just furiously writing down things that I really want to pick up with him again, and hopefully we will at some point. So we obviously talked about personality and mood disorders. We kind of scratched the surface of that in terms of how important your gut is and your gut health is on that. And also Miguel talked about addiction, which sounds fascinating. I think we're kind of kicking around some things at the moment in terms of how we're going to bring that back in and give that the time it needs properly. But it is fascinating, isn't it? I think I knew some of the stuff before I talked to him before, but it all kind of came together in a bit of a crescendo, actually. So,
and I think the takeaway that I did love it. I love the whole thing, and it's made me think. I haven't been eating what I want to eat the last week. I've been eating, I don't know, quick fixes, and what it made me think was almost how new all this is. Because you made some comment about like, surely we've known about all this, and he was almost sort of saying, we have, but we've almost ignored it in a way. It's almost like it's always been there, but no one's really wanted to talk about it or look into it.
Yeah, it's good. So hopefully we'll have him on again. He's up for doing that. So we'll kind of kick some ideas around and have some focused chat. Again, they've kindly offered 30% off these 2 tests, and each test is 160 quid. So, but the amount of which is a decent amount of money. So 30% off of that is really generous, and I think that'll bring it down to £111.30, Mark. But you'd already worked that one out, hadn't you?
Well, I was working it out. But
you probably would have gone 111.28.
Well, did you say 30% of 160?
159.
Oh, 160 would be 48, wouldn't it? And then so that's the difference. Yeah, agreed. I suppose you've used a calculator.
I put it in. So what I did, so they've kindly given us a code which you can put in at the checkout, and you'll get 30% off both of them, which is really cool. So if you go to atlasbiomed.com, we'll put on the links on our show notes if you want them, and we'll put some on social as well. And where it says add promo code, put in I am fine 30.
I am fine.
I am fine 30.
Numbers 30.
Yes, 30.
Okay.
So I am fine 30. And it will actually does this little cool thing where the numbers go and reduce.
We get loads as well, I guess, like
What?
commission and stuff.
No, of course we don't.
Apart from that,
You're obsessed, Mark.
money mad.
As you should. You are. You're always talking about being a billionaire. No, so we don't get anything out of this. We're passing this on because it's a really, really cool test, and I've got loads from it.
Yeah,
and I'm still getting lots from it. So there you go. So thanks to Miguel for doing the interview, and
thanks, Miguel.
Thanks to Elena for setting it up and giving us the code. And there'll be more from them soon. We've got mailbag.
MAIL.
Yeah. So we had a nice email from Cleaner Kelly. I haven't heard from Cleaner Kelly for a while.
No.
I said, hello, Mark and Dame. I'd never spotted that before.
Well, she got it the right way round.
Cheeky monkey. As I listen to your pods generally whilst driving, I can never respond with a quick message or an email. Good. Unlike Mark. So here it
Driving
is.
back, having text messages,
No.
No.
No, you wouldn't do that. Really enjoying
Can't text in the eye shut. Tried.
More on that in another episode. Really enjoying the pods, varied and informative and fun in spades. I'm up to 61. Nice one. And not fallen asleep listening in ages. Cleaner Kelly.
Lovely.
So, I haven't heard from her in ages. And we had a nice comment from Russian Spy on Instagram. Not exactly undercover, is it?
I don't know. It's like a double bluff, though, isn't it?
Yeah. This is on episode 65, which we called Mark's Pet Kingfisher is Timid, Suspicious and Worried, which is probably one of my favourite titles. So Russian Spy wrote, the funniest podcast. I laughed so much I spat tea onto a piece of solder. Thanks.
Onto a Russian soldier.
So just for that might kind of sound really random. Russian Spy makes jewellery.
Yes.
Under the name of Sputnik Jewelry, as you'd expect.
Again, in plain sight.
Yeah, she'd want me to say this because this is setting people off down a, they're all going to go looking for her and she'll be somewhere else. I mean, she's smart, that Russian Spy.
It's a good name.
So go and check out. Yeah, it is very good. So again, have a look at that. Plug. No commission, Mark. That's not how we work. Honestly, I can see the pound signs in your eyes. So unsavoury. Right. Have you got any mailbag, Mark, at all?
No.
Right. Got some life hacks. Would you like some? We haven't had any for a while because of Colin's lengthy resignation letter.
Yeah.
We had to bump these out.
All right.
So you up for this?
I have trepidation on that. This is
why?
about the only thing where I think we're in different camps.
You get what, really?
Because you genuinely believe what you're saying. And I
believe what I'm saying. Of course,
I think it's just dripping in irony and sarcasm, but it's not.
That's just your cynical nature.
Go on then, give us one.
So, Mark.
Oh, life hack: socks before shoes.
No, you've just been a dick. There's no need for that. So why have you got your socks outside of your shoes today?
Keep my shoes
got
clean.
that wrong.
I'll tell you a funny. Here's a very, very funny. No, that's lining up too much.
Let's all be the judge of that.
Yes, this happened in a Pontins. I don't know where the Pontins was, and I don't know when, but it did happen in Pontins. There was a game in Pontins. You had to take all the glasses on your table when you were watching the show, put them all into this big glass, and then drink the contents through a sock. And if you did, you got a bottle of Prosecco.
Oh, you mean put the drink? Well, whatever's left in the
whatever's left.
That's disgusting.
Yeah,
that could have been hopefully a long time ago.
It was on
at a time when
it was
nobody
on
gave a shit.
Shag Married Avoid, because
Okay.
the woman on there Rosie used to work in Pontins, and she said it was like they would encourage people to do
so this
that.
isn't your story.
In my story,
This is not you at Pontins. This is not
No,
an experience you
I haven't
had.
done Pontins.
You've just literally relayed someone else's experience as if it was your own.
when I used to work in Pontins, I was in charge of.
It's legit. I thought that was your story. I thought that was your.
Just edit this.
I don't know what to believe anymore.
I'll edit this in. We'll do it seamlessly.
Well, no, this is going out as is. I'm not touching this.
You know, I used to
Just
work
to
in Pontins in
expose
the
your-
90s.
Mark, it's not working. You can do what you want. You're making yourself look worse.
Okay.
Right, Mark, don't you just hate it when you want to screw a screw and the screw head, normally posy ones or crosshead, depending on where you come from in the country, has gone worn down and you just can't get any purchase on it? Awful, isn't it? When trying to unscrew a posy screw, I call them a posy screw, which has been
Is that Phillips?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Phillips crosshead. Yeah, okay, bloody Phillips. Sorry, when trying to unscrew a Phillips screw that has been worn down and becomes tricky to get any purchase, simply put a wideish. This is really good. A wideish elastic band over the top of it, and then push down through the elastic band, and it gets purchase on the screw head and comes undone. Good one, that. Mark, don't you just hate it when your candle burns and it burns?
Oh yes,
And
and
you
there's
don't-
leftover wick on the sides.
Not wick, wax.
Wax,
Wick
yeah.
wax. You're genuinely excited. You're taking the piss out of me.
No, I am, because it seems
It's a problem.
It seems a waste.
It does, doesn't it?
Also, why don't they coat buildings in whatever wicks are made of? Because they only burn really slowly.
Right, what?
Do you know what I mean?
No.
You set fire to a wick. If you set fire to a piece of paper, it would be gone in like 5 seconds.
Right?
You set fire to a wick surrounded by wax, and it lasts for ages.
Yeah. So why didn't they make buildings
Buildings out of
wick
candles?
wick and wax?
So if there was a fire, it would take a long time, and it'd smell nice, but it could get put out. That's what I'm saying. It's just a thought.
Yeah, you want to keep those to yourself
Yeah.
in future?
So you're going to go about the wasted wax.
The wasted wax around
Yeah.
the top because they have a little weld, doesn't it? So, and I've tried to kind of break off the wax, and
Yeah.
it doesn't
No.
work, does it? It just goes over the. So here's what you do:
I'm excited. Go.
get some foil, put it round the if you're in a glass jar, and have a little bit of foil over the top, and just fold it over so it's like a circular shelf. Light it, let it burn for a couple of hours, and it'll all just settle nice and flat. Good, right?
I can't understand what you just said, but fine.
I'll put a link to it.
Yeah.
I'll somehow.
Yeah.
All right.
Next.
I'll draw it and put it on Instagram. For fuck's sake. Right. When you're in the buff, prevent your bathroom mirror from fogging up. You must suffer from this because you shower regularly, and I bet you got a massive mirror in your your bathroom, haven't you? Full length. Actually, you probably just got a mirrored bathroom.
It's got
So-
anti-fog. Yeah.
Yeah, anti-fog. Got demister all built in.
And screen wipers.
So apply a small amount of car wax or a lot of car wax to your mirror.
Yeah.
Put it on there and wash it, and then let it dry, and then buff with a soft, dry cloth. It won't fog up. So there we go. I'll have to crack on and finish up, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Is that all right? You got
Yeah.
anything to add?
Nope.
That's it for this episode. Well done for getting this far. And thanks for listening. Give us a follow on Instagram and Twitter at I'mFinecast, and send your feedback and ideas to I'mFinecast@gmail.com. And don't forget to give us a 5-star review. That really helps on Apple Podcasts, and tell a friend or two. In the next episode, did you have any ideas what you want to do in the next episode, Mark? Because I haven't got any.
Yes, I have 2 ideas what I would like to do in the next episode, Damien. Number 1 is I would like to revisit accountability.
Oh.
And I want to sort of show how it might work by doing a sort of practical demonstration with the listeners. And number 2 is I would like to have a conversation about, are we being too nice?
Okay, cool. All right, that's what's in next episode.
Coming up.
Yeah, coming up. Okay, so we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Thanks. See you soon. Bye.
See you.